and I will be discussing the film Queen of the Ring. I believe the director's name is Ash Avildsen. There was some familiar faces and some new faces in this thing for me. Most prominently is the lady that played the Queen of the Ring herself, Mildred Burke, or Mildred Bliss, or Mildred or Millie, all the same character. Mildred Burke was a real person, if you don't know, and the actress is a very adept. Really got in good shape physically for this. I can't remember ever seeing her before. I believe her name, I want to say Britt something. Very attractive, let's put it that way. And I thought she did a great job in this movie. And I think she will be an actress that will do quite well. Reminds me a bit of several years ago, there was a movie about the WWE wrestler Paige, and who was it? Florence Pugh played her. And of course, Florence Pugh has become a big star. And Midsommar, among other roles. Oppenheimer, she was in that. But going back to this Brit lady, certainly whenever you cast actresses, or especially actresses, but also actors, you typically see that the characters are more physically attractive than the real life people. Not to say that Mildred Burke was attractive in her own right. And of course, tastes change and people's looks change with the decades. But this woman, this actress is quite stunning, I would say. And I'm sure she'll do well in her career. Let's talk, and then also some familiar faces, like I said, wrestling stars, actual pro wrestling, modern stars. I thought Camille was tremendous. Camille, who I've seen, I actually saw a great match with Camille versus Angela Love at the NWA pay-per-view, Enough Said, I believe in 2022. And Camille is quite a force in wrestling, and she's about 6'1" or 6'2", very intimidating. She plays June Byers. Now, folks, if you know me at all, I mean, this is One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan YouTube channel. You should know that I'm pretty much a pro wrestling historian in my own right, but this information would be news to me. So unlike the Von Erich movie that came out last October, The Iron Claw, which I saw twice in the theater, and I interviewed the gentleman that played Kevin Anton, who played Harley Race. I interviewed him on this channel twice. You can find those interviews. But basically, in this movie, I didn't really know the real story, this inside information about Mildred Burke. So watching this film, Queen of the Ring, I couldn't sit there and correct the movie for the most part. There's a few little things that I could correct. You might be wondering, well, gee whiz, Mike, what was a mistake that the movie made that you can share with us? Early in the film, there's a fight scene or a wrestling scene between Mildred Burke, and she's basically doing the carnival wrestling thing where you wrestle somebody in the crowd. And these two men, hello, what's up, 3P? I'm talking about the movie Queen of the Ring. It's a pro wrestling movie. It's in the theaters now in the United States. I don't know where you are right now in the world, but if you look for it, Queen of the Ring, it's a movie about Mildred Burke and some real-life wrestlers, like Camille is in it. She plays June Byers. Dr. Britt Baker's in it for about 5 seconds. From Russia. Well, Glasnost, me comrade, good to see you here. And we're talking about this. I do watch UFC, and I did watch the pay-per-view the other night, and it was quite good. Let me get back to that. I'll break into a breakdown of the UFC pay-per-view. It was a very good pay-per-view. The main event, Pierre lost his title. My thoughts on it, well, I guess I'll diverge since we have a request. I think it was 3-2 for, I'm sorry, I'm going to say the name wrong, the new champion, Anna Kalaev. I don't dispute that. I think he won three rounds to 2. I think he won by decision, just as the judges saw it. I thought it was a fair decision. Yeah, so we're in agreement. I think the rematch will probably be a better fight, and I do hope they run it back, meaning an immediate rematch without any other matches in between for either guy. The reason why I say that is I feel like this might be one of those rivalries, like in boxing, was it Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury? They fought 3 times, but the second fight was actually their best fight. No, I'm sorry. Their third fight was the best fight, but it took them 2 fights to get to that third fight. And I think with these 2 guys in the UFC, it's going to be a better rematch, because I think both the urgency for the challenger now, Alex Pereira, and I say these names wrong, I know I do, he'll have the urgency to reclaim his title. The new champion, I think, will have the urgency to prove it's not a fluke, and they'll go right at it. I think the feeling out process will be accomplished from the first fight, and I think the second fight will be a lot better. And hopefully, it's only, what is it, March 10th? I think maybe late summer. I mean, if they really want to push this thing, why not, July or August? I think that would be tremendous. Let me get back to the other fights on that show. I did think that Gauthier, who I like, I always say his name wrong, I think he did win. It wasn't a great fight, but I thought he won. The first fight on the night on the UFC Fight Pass, which I do have, that was the best fight of the night, I thought. Was it Santos and some other guy? I don't know if it was Garcia or something, but they had a hell of a fight to start the show. The women's fight wasn't that great, but it wasn't that bad. And like I said, I thought it was very entertaining pay-per-view. I don't think it's the greatest pay-per-view ever, but I thought it was a nice fight. I also like the fact that there was only 10 fights on the show, which I found to be a nice consumable amount. It wasn't like, 12 or 14 fights. It was just 10 was fine. Okay, let's go back to the Queen of the Ring, folks. I liked the movie. Early, what I saw was basically the character that's playing Mildred Burke, or Mildred Burke's character. She's fighting a man, a big, 300-pound guy about my size, and she gets him into like an ankle lock type of thing. And actually, it's kind of like a STF, basically. And the gentleman taps out while submitting. And folks, here's just a thing. Tapping out, really, speaking of UFC, tapping out pretty much started in popularity with Ultimate Fighting Championship. Ness, I'm sure that there is some, Taekwondo class or some karate class or some other jiu-jitsu or Brazilian jiu-jitsu where people tapped out. But as far as being a mainstream thing for pro wrestling, I believe that tapping out really started with guys like Taz in ECW in the mid-90s, and then was popularized more a few years later by Kurt Angle in the WWF/E. I was watching wrestling my whole life, and it was either somebody said, I quit, I submit, or the referee would wave the hand 3 times, like that old gimmick, like Chief Jay Strongbow with the sleeper hold, where you'd have to lift the guy's arm up and he'd drop it 3 times. So the tapping out, I first started seeing that with Taz in ECW and the Kata Hajime, his reverse chokehold. And then a few years later, Kurt Angle, when he was in WWE, would do a beautiful ankle lock. Actually, Ken Shamrock would do the ankle lock. And I'm trying to remember if guys, I guess they did tap out to Ken Shamrock's ankle lock. But I think really the Kurt Angle thing really popularized the tapping out. So Kurt Angle, Taz, those are the forefathers of tapping out. No offense to Mildred Burke, but I do not think that tapping out was really a thing. And this is one of those little things where we don't have a time machine. We can't go back to this county fair in Georgia in 1939 or whenever it took place to check the videotape. So when people make historical films, they really do have a lot of power. And that's why there needs to be some checks and balances, because if they're making stuff up, and that's why people get so upset about a movie like The Iron Claw, where there's a lot of liberties taken. This movie, even I, as a pro wrestling enthusiast, historian, a well-educated pro wrestling fan, I have to take some of this storytelling on its surface level. You know what I mean? Unless I'm sure that there's some type of book. I think there actually is a novel or a book, Queen of the Ring, about Mildred Burke, and I'm probably listening to it now. I'll probably listen to it on audio if that exists. But in any event, what do I think of trans people cheesecake? Well, let's save that. I'm trying to think if I have any videos on that. I think it's a lively topic. I'll give you that much. I mean, first off, they are people. But I've also seen, now you got me, you guys really are good at distracting me. But with the trans people, I mean, I think in 5 or 10 or 15 years, you're going to see a whole lot more of trans regretters coming to the forefront. There's a young person now. I'm trying to think of her name. Was it Chelsea or something? Who maybe Carly? But basically, she's a trans regretter. She was a young woman who I believe was transitioning to male, and then she changed her mind and went back. But the long-term repercussions of the steroids and the pills and the fucking puberty blockers, I think that's the thing where the line for me kind of comes with the kids. I really don't think anyone under 18 should be doing this. Why did we never get a Robin Burke versus Mae Young match? Are you thinking of Mildred Burke? Because Mildred Burke is the star of this, the character Golf franchise. Golf franchise is a longtime viewer. According to this movie, and I'm guessing that you haven't seen it yet, Golf, but they're kind of in the same camp. And what I thought was really pretty interesting about this movie, and to the movie's credit, this Billy Wolf character, who's a real life person, who was kind of the Don King of women's wrestling, and he didn't even intend to be. He basically started doing that because Mildred, according to this movie, wanted to be a wrestler, and women's wrestling was more or less banned. But because he had a hard-on, quite literally, for her, he was, twice her age, and he was enamored with her, and he wanted to wed her and bed her and all these wonderful things. But he basically started promoting women's wrestling, became Billy Wolf's niche. The movie does a nice little end thing, like, when they show like the pictures of the real people and they show the whatever happened to deal. They said that despite his many flaws, Billy Wolf is credited of being a forerunner for women's wrestling. What do you think of taxes? I am scared of them. I agree, Cheesecake. Taxes are scary. But if you have them to do them so you don't get caught by IRS or an shyster. So going back to the film, like I said, this actress is phenomenal. I thought she was, first of all, she's very beautiful. And also I thought she was a great actress. And if you're going to have to be with a character for 2 hours and 15 minutes, because this is a longer film, you want someone who can carry the movie. And I thought she carried the movie quite well. There was also a lot of side stories in this thing. Mae Young is a huge supporting character. Why did they never have the match? I guess, to answer the question, because Mae Young was kind of like her best buddy. Like, Mae Young was kind of like her ride or die friend after a while, as far as the other women. There's also some intrigue, and I have a feeling a lot of you guys haven't seen this movie yet. Isn't Zoe Stark like married to some guy that's twice her age? Zoe Stark. God, which one is she? I'm drawing a blank. Is Zoe Stark in AEW now? Or is Zoe Stark in NXT? Which one is Zoe? Because I've probably seen her live. I'm drawing a blank on Zoe Stark. Is she like short blonde hair? Fill me in, because I know the name. I'm just drawing a blank on Zoe Stark. But basically, this movie's quite good. It's an interesting deal because according to this film, and like I said, historical reenactments, hello, Paxton Plays VR, WWE on Raw. God, I'm Zoe Stark. She's blonde. I'm drawing a blank, buddy. I can't even think of her. But if she's married to a guy twice your age, I guess we should feel good for the guy. In that regard, right? Feel good for the old timer, who's got this young little siren in his life. But in any regard, in this movie, fucking Mildred meets the guy that would become her stepson first, who's in the crowd. And one thing about this movie is they more, with the exception of fucking Mildred's infant son, the characters are all playing over like a 20 or 25 year span. The first thing that I noticed is the woman that's playing Mildred Burke's mother looks like she's about 5 years older than the woman playing Mildred Burke. Like, they look like they could be sisters, like really close in age. In fact, I wouldn't be terribly shocked if the actress in real life who played the mother is younger than the actress that played Mildred, because I did not see any type of real age discrepancy. And maybe it was a thing where, like, in Kentucky, back in those days, like, the women got pregnant at age 13 or something. Can you shout out my autistic son? His name is Nick Gers. He would really appreciate it. Hey, Nick, how's it going? It's your buddy Mike Messier. Nick, hope you're having a great night, buddy. If you're watching Monday Night Raw, that's fantastic. If you're not, that's even better. I just saw the movie Queen of the Ring, Nick, so hope you're having a great year, pal. And we're going to talk about this movie. So, you know, Jim Cornette is in this movie. He actually did a pretty goddamn good job. Sorry, Nick. Sorry for the swearing, but Jim Cornette did a nice job as the NWA commissioner. Kind of like a very vague title, but I thought Cornette's presence, I mean, he didn't get into hyper Cornette mode, but I thought he was quite good. There was an incident apparently last night on the AEW pay-per-view where one of these, I don't know if Nick Gers is something, oh geez, now I see what you're doing. Oh, that's horrible. So very good, Cheesecake, very good. So this young lady was representing the movie last night on the AEW pay-per-view, and she basically said that wrestling's fake. Like, she basically was given the microphone from Tony Schiavone. Let's keep it clean, Cheesecake. So basically, she was handed the microphone by Tony Schiavone, and she basically said to the audience, hey, professional wrestlers, one thing I've learned about you is you know if you're going to win or not based on before the match starts. And but I didn't say it. I said the name properly with the correct pronunciation and the pausing. So I thought that this woman, this actress, I don't know if she was going into business for herself. She was trying to be cute. But the British guy, James, who does all the interviews with Dutch Mantel and Don Morocco, he really took issue with this and did like some video that I watched this morning. And it did piss me off too, because I'm like, why is this woman disrespecting pro wrestling if we're pro wrestling fans and she's getting a comped ticket to go to the wrestling pay-per-view, and she is insulting the very people that she's supposed to be honoring in this movie. So it was annoying to me, and for half a second I was like, well, I'm going to cancel my ticket to see the movie tonight. And then I realized I've worked on many major motion pictures, fellas, and one person's behavior, I'm not gonna allow one stupid actress to ruin the movie for me, because I know that all the people that worked hard on that film, it's not fair to them if this one idiot goes onto an AEW pay-per-view and mouths off and says something stupid. So the point is, I still went to go see the movie. There was a grand total of 2 people in the theater tonight, including me. I was able to take off my shoes in peace because there was no one near me. The other guy was like 4 hours. Okay, well, good job at school, Paxton. Stay in school, buddy. If you have to guess C on those Scantron tests. That's what they always told me. So good luck, Paxton. But you can watch this tomorrow, buddy. But the movie has a lot of like big match situations. Like Toni Storm from AEW is in this movie. I thought she did quite well. Kind of an understated performance. Not much verbiage from Toni Storm in this, but she is in the movie and she has a lot of screen time. And I thought she did quite well. She matched up physically with the actress quite well. The actress playing Mildred. We do have like other big matches. The interracial match is a big deal because, like it said, the movie said, for all his flaws, Billy Wolf was a guy who championed a lot of stuff, women's wrestling and also, black ladies wrestling, African-American ladies wrestling. He was ahead of the curve on everything. So, I mean, you do have to give the guy credit. The relationship between, and I don't like it when movies do this, but the relationship between Mildred Burke and essentially her stepson, where they've basically taken each other as lovers, it's kind of like we go from 0 to 60 on that in the movie. It's like that tension or that storyline was not really being developed on the surface in this movie. And I don't know if I missed something. I never went to the restroom. I never took a break. But we don't see any like big passion between them. We see the stepson kind of, doting over his stepmother and fawning over her. And Logan Creed, I have wrestled in the past. You can look up Mad Dog Mike Messier, but I haven't wrestled in a while. I'm in the middle of nowhere, buddy. If you would yell the word monkey outside your car, there's nobody here, so I mean, it's not going to hurt me. But I feel like you're trying to entrap me there, Cheesecake. I don't know if I can trust you, buddy, because I feel like you're trying to entrap me in some type of agenda. See what you did? So I'm not a wrestler. You can look up Mad Dog Mike Messier on this channel, though, buddy, because I did wrestle a few matches. He did champion the women's wrestlers. He did champion a lot of things, and he was quite good. So, I mean, I feel like the movie did a nice job of presenting the character of Billy Wolf in a pretty well-rounded way. Another couple of things I noticed is I'm wondering if this director, Ash Avildsen, directs like Eastbound and Down and the other things, Vice Principals, because a lot of people in this show, in this movie tonight, were actors I've seen on the show Eastbound and Down, not the main guy, but the love interest, the teacher on that one, like the very beautiful brunette lady. She's in this as one of the wrestlers. Now I'm getting held for review, Cheesecake. Gee whiz, buddy, what's going on here? And other things. So, I mean, the guy that's in Vice Principals, guys, if you haven't seen the show on HBO, Vice Principals, I think it's awesome. I just got through all of that. Danny McBride is the main guy. But the secondary guy on that, I do not think Lex Luger will admit in his Hall of Fame speech that he killed Miss Elizabeth. You guys are just rowdy tonight, aren't you? So I don't think Lex will say anything about Elizabeth. Maybe he'll mention her in passing, so to speak. What else? There was a lot of, attractive women in this movie. Even the woman playing Mae Young was quite attractive and cute and so forth. And I was kind of waiting to see if there's going to be any Fabulous Moolah references, and there wasn't. I know that Mae Young started wrestling, I want to say 5 or 10 years before Moolah. Cheesecake is getting back on track now. When you wrestled, would you say you were good? As far as like, I think my promos were fucking good. I'll say that. Like I said, look up the Mad Dog Mike Messier versus Kevin Lee Roth chain match on this channel somewhere. I think my promos were fine. I think for being an untrained wrestler, I did quite well. I wouldn't say that I was great. I would say that given the standards of the people I was wrestling, like the promotion I was in, I was fine. Probably better on the mic than in the ring. But I think I handled myself fine. And I think I also knew that at the end of the day, I wasn't getting the training. We didn't have a real trainer. Probably the biggest name in our group was Brutal Bob Evans, who eventually would go to be in Ring of Honor with Mike Bennett as his trainer, like kind of the manager role. So if you know who Brutal Bob Evans is, he was with our group. He was a great guy. But he wasn't training us. We were kind of on the job training. But yeah, there you go. I thought it was fine. I'm not claiming, like, if I thought I was a big time wrestler or whatever the fuck, I would have pursued it further. The other thing is, to be quite serious with you, I had an opponent several times that was, my opponent, Mighty Bosch, nice guy, but he had like this finishing maneuver. It was kind of an amateur slam type of thing where he'd kind of lift me up for a power slam, but most of the bump was getting taken on the back of my shoulders, which was really close to the vertebrae, quite honestly. So it was really a dumb finishing maneuver because it didn't look very flashy or terribly exciting, but it looked, very dangerous. So I stopped wanting to do that because I'm like, if I get hurt doing this stuff, there's no insurance. You know what I mean? If I get paralyzed, what the fuck? My life is over. And I just took I'm not getting paid. You know, quite honestly, I wasn't getting paid for this stuff. So there was really no point in doing it. Who was the heaviest person you could wrestle back then? I did wrestle a guy named Steamroller. Again, a nice gentleman. Steamroller was probably a legitimate, I would say somewhere between 285 and 315 pounds. And he was probably 6 feet tall even. Nice guy, but I mean, you know, aren't they? Oh, that's interesting, Golf. Aren't they supposed to be making a Benoit movie? Maybe finally revealed Kevin Sullivan role. Well, that's Kevin Sullivan just passed away about a year ago. I don't particularly think that Kevin Sullivan had anything to do with the Chris Benoit, Nancy Benoit murders in the Sun. I mean, I think Sullivan was interviewed and he was cleared. I don't think he had anything to do with it. I think it's kind of a testimony to Kevin Sullivan as a wrestling character from the state of Florida in the early 80s all the way until, you know, the Dungeon of Doom in the 90s in WCW, that people think that he was somehow involved. They were exes by that point. I mean, look, I think I don't think Sullivan had anything to do with it, but I could be wrong. I mean, I wasn't there and neither were you as far as I know. I really held out for a long time with the Benoit conspiracy stuff. And to give you some honesty, I still think there's more to that story than they tell us. There's the whole thing with somebody reporting on Wikipedia that Benoit had killed his wife hours before the house was even looked at or something like that. So, I mean, I do feel like there's more to this story, the Benoit story, but I don't know the answers. So I think it's one of those things where we will probably go to our deaths not knowing. How long when I last in the ring with The Rock? You know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how much mercy I wanted to give him. It depends on how much I wanted to let him breathe before I stopped allowing him to do so. Cheesecake. So, in any regard, this movie was quite good. I would say it's worth seeing. I would say one thing that I made a tactical error. For whatever reason, I got into the theater right when it was getting started, like right with the AMC Nicole Kidman walking through the water. And I did have a parched, you know, I was like, can I get through this 2-hour movie without any liquid, like without getting a beverage? And I kind of just forced myself because I felt like with this movie, I didn't want to miss 1 minute of it. I didn't want to miss a thing, as Aerosmith might sing. But I was kind of like dry throat. So I would say that when you go see this movie, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. I didn't remember that or realize that. And there really wasn't any really good moment when you could bail on the film and not miss something important. So my point is, if you go to this movie in the theater, get yourself a beverage before it starts because you're going to be there for a while. Like I said, I thought all the women in this movie did a great job. Apparently the director, Ash, has said things that the WWE kind of screwed with him a couple of times. They originally were going to let him use Charlotte Flair and who's the other one? I think Becky Lynch in this movie. And they didn't. So at the last minute, they pulled Charlotte, who I'm guessing was going to play June Byers. And they pulled Becky, who might have played, there was a redheaded character in this movie, Gilliam, I think her name was. And Naomi, oddly enough, is in this movie. I don't know if this movie was filmed during that window where Naomi, basically the wife of one of the Usos, she was gone from the WWE for about 1.5 years because of the Sasha Banks and the tag team title thing. So maybe this movie was filmed during that era, but Naomi's in this movie, not very prominently. What's the fastest you ever won a match? My first match was basically about 6 minutes long. So if you look for the debut of Mad Dog Mike Messier on this channel in my wrestling days, I think it's about a 6-minute match, which I did win. The wife of Big Jim. Yes, correct. So Naomi's in this movie. I guess you could say this is a movie interpromotional because technically you have Dr. Britt Baker and Tony Storm representing AEW, and you have but Naomi, I don't know if she was in the WWE when this was filmed, but let's say that she was. She's in the movie. I think it's kind of a shame that, but I think it worked out for the best, because if I'm assuming correctly that Charlotte Flair was supposed to play June Byers and she got pulled and they put in Camille, I don't think anyone could have done a better job than Camille as June Byers. I think if for most modern fans, if they went to this movie and Charlotte Flair's in the movie as June Byers, they're just going to think of Charlotte Flair, you know. But I think Camille is still obscure enough that, you know, she's not, and she doesn't do a whole lot of promo stuff, that I think Camille kind of fell into the character quite nicely. And she kind of looked like really good as that era, like with the bustier type of top and stuff. So I think, you know, Camille did tremendous and so forth. There was kind of a quirky little moment in this movie where Mildred and the stepson are having this romantic flashback, and they're playing Dust in the Wind by the group Kansas, although they're using a different version of it. But it was just kind of odd. Like halfway through the movie, or maybe 2/3, we're having this like romantic flashback of the mother-stepson relationship. Kind of freaky a little bit if you think about it. I mean, it did feel like the son, you know, kind of served up Mildred to his father, and then he wanted her, the son wanted her. So, I mean, but those are the days, right, folks? All right, so this has been a very interesting freewheeling situation. Cheesecake had his chuckles and grins, but you guys can make it up to me by purchasing my book, Fight or Play Basketball. It's a wonderful novel on Amazon, Audible, Fight or Play Basketball, Mike Messier. You can also go to the Forward Object, all lowercase, on the eBay, look at my eBay stuff. You can go to mikemessier.com/shop. But I had a fun time discussing things with you tonight. I'm in a fucking Wawa, which is here in the United States, if our Russian friend is still with us. We have these gas stations that are 24 hours, and they have food and all types of excitement. But I'm here at the Wawa, having just seen this movie. I guess I'll go home and maybe I'll throw on that WWE Raw, and see that cage match that I missed. No spoiling. And I did go to see NXT House Show live in Jacksonville on Friday night. So if you look on here, I have a few photos, and I'll put some more photos up. And also on TikTok, one Mike Messier, and on YouTube, one Mike Messier, and on Instagram. I thought I was on Instagram for a minute. I'm not. I'm here on our buddy YouTube. I just get confused. All right, folks. One Mike Messier on YouTube, one Mike Messier on TikTok, one pro wrestling and sports fan.